the samurai are definitely something I would comically exaggerate my love for. The legendary Japanese warriors fought for hundreds of years. When people in the West think of samurai, they usually think of those from the Sengoku period, like Oda Nobunaga, Akechi Mitsuhide, and Tokugawa Ieyasu. But a few hundred years before them, one of Japan's earliest heroes was on the rise. In the year 1159, a child was born as the ninth son to Minamoto no Yoshitomo. This child is commonly referred to as Minamoto no Yoshitsune, though in childhood he was known as Ushiwakamaru. In 1160, he was just a baby when his father staged the Heiji Rebellion. The plan was to kidnap the former emperor Go-Shirakawa, burn down his palace, and seize control of Japan. Yoshitomo had held a grudge against the former emperor. Both he and rival samurai leader Taira Kiyomori had backed him in a political dispute. Yoshitomo expected wealth and glory in return, but was instead named the minister of the stables of the left, while Kiyomori got the great reward he was expecting. The plan for the rebellion was that once the former emperor was kidnapped, he would take away the titles given to Kiyomori and then give them to Yoshitomo. The plan worked at first. Go-Shirakawa was successfully kidnapped, and the palace was burned down. Taira Kiyomori and his forces then came in to launch a counterattack, but they were driven off by the Minamoto. But it was a trick. When the Minamoto let their guard down, the Taira came in and just kind of annihilated them. Then the former emperor, Go-Shirakawa, walked right out, so the entire point of the rebellion was gone and most of the Minamoto forces were dead, so it was not a good rebellion. Yoshitomo and his remaining men went away and took refuge in the house of a retainer. The retainer offered Yoshitomo a bath, and then when he was taking a bath, the retainer just came in and killed him. So this was the world that Yoshitsune, or Ushiwakamaru, was born into. A not very good one. As a quick side note, the clans of Minamoto and Taira are often referred to in their Chinese readings, so the Minamoto are also the Genji, and the Taira are also the Heike. Now that Yoshitomo was dead, the Minamoto didn't have a leader, and the Taira became the dominant force in Japan. However, for whatever reason, their leader Kiyomori decided to spare some of the Minamoto lineage. Among these were Yoshitsune, his mother, and his half-brother Yoritomo, who was banished to the province of Izu. What happened in the following years is unknown, but some theorize that Yoshitsune and his mother lived with Kiyomori. After that, Yoshitsune was sent to Kurama Temple to become a monk, ensuring that he wouldn't become a samurai like his father and enact revenge. In the temple, he was known as Shanaou. When he was 15, he escaped and went to the town of Hiraizumi and trained to become a samurai. At some point, he met the warrior monk Musashibo Benkei. According to legend, Benkei was on a quest to collect 1,000 weapons. He had won 999 through duels, but when trying for number 1000, he lost the duel with Yoshitsune on Gojo Bridge. Benkei was so impressed that he joined Yoshitsune as his retainer. It's worth noting that there are barely any historical facts known about Benkei, and most of this information is coming from Japanese folklore. Some people think that the figure of Benkei is actually an amalgamation of a couple different people. Nevertheless, the generally accepted character of Benkei is that of an extremely strong and extremely loyal warrior. Around this time, Yoshitsune also met a famous dancer named Shizuka, and they fell in love. What she saw in him? No idea. There are several conflicting ideas about what Yoshitsune actually looked like. According to this book, the only real account of it is that he had crooked teeth and bulging eyes. But according to a different translation of this book, he was youthful and dashing. Then again, this one isn't always the most trustworthy, so who knows. Even the arc you're seeing behind me is from hundreds of years later, so that's not really a good source either. Beyond that, he is often portrayed as Bishonen, which is like a beautiful man, pretty much, and he is also sometimes very feminine. I don't know where that one comes from, but it is surprisingly common. If the crooked teeth and bulging eyes thing was true, it definitely did not matter because, well, he had multiple wives. He didn't actually marry Shizuka, which is like the one everyone knows them together, so, yeah. Anyway, years later, Yoritomo, that's Yoshitsune's brother that got banished, he launched a revolution against the Taira, and Yoshitsune was like, yeah, I'll do that also, even though they had never met. So, Yoshitsune left Hiraizumi to become a commander for the Minamoto. The legends present him as like a perfect hero and moral figure, but he also like burned down villages to send a message, so anyways, Yoshitsune was seen as a tactical genius and was responsible for several major victories in the Genpei War. In the Battle of Uji River in 1184, the Uji Bridge had been destroyed to keep them from crossing. So Yoshitsune got an idea to just make the horses go over the water. In the Battle of Ichi-no-Tani, 4,000 Minamoto troops attacked from one side, while Yoshitsune and his soldiers rode down a mountain and flanked the Taira. Yoshitsune also claimed victory in the final battle of the war, the naval battle of Dan no Uda, where he apparently jumped on 8 different boats. After the war, Yoritomo would become the first shogun of Japan. A shogun was a military leader and a position that would last for nearly 700 years. Although there is a very legitimate argument that could be made that Yoshitsune is the most responsible for the Minamoto victory in the Genpei War, Yoritomo thought differently. Yoshitsune had become very popular among the people of Japan because he was the hero of the Genpei War, and Yoritomo got very jealous. Not only did Yoshitsune receive no recognition for his efforts in the war, but Yoritomo declared him an enemy of the state. All of a sudden, the hero of the Genpei War was now an outlaw. So, Yoritomo is kind of a dumb loser, and Yoshitsune had to go into hiding. Nothing's really known about where Yoshitsune went at the time, because he was in hiding, but there is one story that goes like this. Yoshitsune was almost discovered while crossing a border, so Benkei beat the crap out of him, because, logically, no retainer would ever do that to his lord, and for that reason, they were let through. During this time, Yoritomo captured Shizuka, who was pregnant with Yoshitsune's baby. If it was a girl, it would become a servant, but if it was a boy, it would be instantly killed. Yoritomo didn't want the child to become a samurai like his father and enact revenge, assuming that Yoshitsune would soon be found and killed. It was a boy. Eventually, Yoshitsune and the gang made their way back to Hiraizumi. For a while, he lived there with one of his wives and a child, under the protection of the man who took him in after he fled the temple, Hidehira Fujiwara. However, Fujiwara ended up dying of an illness, and his son, pressured by Yoritomo, betrayed Yoshitsune. As everyone involved in the upcoming battle is very dead, we don't really know what happened, but I will be laying it out as the way it's generally been accepted. In the Battle of Koromogawa, Yoshitsune's retainers defended him against about 500 foes. Of course, the retainers all died. That, of course, includes Benkei. It is said that Benkei died standing up, with tons of arrows lodged in his body. Yoshitsune retreated into a building and committed seppuku, ritual suicide, dying at 30 years old. Some accounts also have his wife and child dying, whether he killed them or they killed them themselves. Yoshitsune's head was still cut off for some reason and presented to Yoritomo, even though he already was dead. But Yoritomo, 10 years later, would end up dying falling off of a horse. They say that the ghost of Yoshitsune scared the horse, causing him to fall off. As I said, nobody really knows what happened in the battle where Benkei and Yoshitsune and all them died, so some theorize that Yoshitsune actually lived, and that is completely unfounded. Some also theorize that Yoshitsune left and went to Mongolia, where he became known as Genghis Khan, which is, that didn't happen. Anyways, I learned most of this doing a project for high school, which was many years ago. I did like a book report type thing on this book I talked about earlier, Samurai Rising, The Epic Life of Minamoto Yoshitsune by Pamela S. Turner. So yeah, I did that, and while I was researching, I typed in some form of Yoshitsune Minamoto Yoshitsune, any different way you could find it, and I saw this guy pop up, and I was like, oh, I guess, yeah, that makes sense. One of the most famous samurai would be in some Japanese media. So that's what this video is about. Yoshitsune in different media. There is a whole lot. So yeah, now that we know his general story, let's go through some of the media he's in, from TV to movies to kabuki theater. But I can't talk about every single thing he's in because it's too much. So first, let's go through a quick speed round, and then I'll go into more detail on some things like that are around me that I can talk about. Alright, let's start. Yoshitsune and the Thousand Cherry Trees debuted in 1747 as Jodo the Puppet Theater, and in 1748 there was a kabuki rendition. It is a very famous kabuki play. Moon Saga, Mysteries of Yoshitsune 1 and 2 are a duology of stage plays based on the story of Yoshitsune, written, composed, and directed by Gakt, who also played the role of Yoshitsune. There's spirits and stuff. It's historical fiction. The art and costume design were done by Clamp, the mangaka group most famous for Cardcaptor Sakura. We get to see a bit of Yoshitsune in the 1965 film Kwaidan, directed by Masaki Kobayashi. The film was based on the book of the same name, with this part being based on the well-known Japanese folktale Hoichi the Earless, in which an evil samurai spirit asks the character Hoichi to perform the Dan no Ura portion of Tale of the Heike, which is why we get to see Yoshitsune in the film. Yoshitsune Ki is a PS2 game based on Yoshitsune, featuring art from Death Note artist Obata Takashi. In Genpei Tomaden, you take control of resurrected Taira commander Taira no Kagekyo, getting revenge on Yoshitsune, Benkei, and Yoritomo, who appear as bosses. These versions of Yoshitsune and Yoritomo also appear in Namco x Capcom. In the game Okami, the first boss Waka is based off Yoshitsune, Waka coming from Ushiwakamaru. Waka always carries the flute, which the real Ushiwakamaru was known to do. Benkei also appears in this game as a monk protecting a bridge and seeking to collect 1,000 weapons. Benkei appears as a boss in the game Nioh. Both he and Yoshitsune also appear as bosses in the Nioh 2 Tengu's Disciple DLC. Shizuka appears as the final boss of the game Samurai Showdown from 2019. In the game Shinsetsu Samurai Spirit Bushido Retsuden, the soul of Yoshitsune is sealed inside of a woman who is in love with one of the main villains, treating the antagonist Ushiwaka Hime. Yoshitsune and Benkei are both playable characters in the Warriors Orochi video game series. In the video game Mystical Ninja starring Goemon, Benkei is guarding the Gojo Ohashi Bridge, and you need to get the help of the character Ushiwaka to defeat him. Ushiwakamaru is often shortened to Ushiwaka. In the Shin Megami Tensei and Persona games, Yoshitsune appears as a summonable demon and Persona. He also appears in Persona's anime adaptations. Yoshitsune appears as Japan's hero in Age of Empires: The Age of Kings for Nintendo DS. Yoshitsune is a character in the Nobunaga's Ambition games. Benkei and Shizuka join in Nobunaga's Ambition Iron Triangle. Yoshitsune is one of many available generals in the Genghis Khan video game series. He shares attributes with Genghis Khan, a reference to the old theory that they are the same person. Sticking with historical sims, Yoshitsune also appears in Genpei Kasen, which just means the Genpei War. In Pokemon Black 2 and White 2, a trainer on a bridge claims to have won 999 battles straight, then challenging the player to a battle. This is a reference to the battle between Benkei and Yoshitsune. In Ghost of Tsushima, Benkei Falls and Kiyomori's Landing are presumably named after our guys Musashipo Benkei and Taira Kiyomori. In the multiplayer mode, Ghost of Tsushima Legends, you can get the legendary weapons, Yoshitsune's Hand and Benkei's Last Stand. The latter gives you 15% chance to negate arrow damage. In Sekido Shadows Die Twice, the character Kuro shares one of Yoshitsune's names and is somewhat based on him. Yoshitsune makes a very minor appearance as a Mitama in the Tokiden games. Benkei and Yoshitsune appear in the gacha game Fate Grand Order, as well as its anime adaptations. Yoshitsune is an anime girl going by Ushiwakamaru, and Benkei is not actually Benkei, but actually some other dude pretending to be Benkei. That was a weird direction to go with that, but okay. This version of Yoshitsune also appears in Fate Requiem. Yoshitsune also appears as an anime girl in Nintendo and side games gacha game Dragalia Lost. In the MMORPG Onigiri, you can play as Yoshitsune and Shizuka, who are both anime girls. They also appear as main characters in the 2016 anime adaptation. In Eiyu Senki and Eiyu Senki Gold, Yoshitsune and Benkei are both romanceable anime girls that you can have sex with, alongside characters like Columbus and Rasputin. This version of Yoshitsune shares a voice actress with the main lady from Steins Gate if that interests you. In the Maji de Watashi ni Koishi na Sai series, Yoshitsune and Benkei are both romanceable anime girls that you can have sex with. In the games Ikemen Genji Gen Aikashi Koyanishi, Genro, and Harukanaru Toki no Nakade 3, Yoshitsune appears as a romanceable anime boy. He also appears in Haruka 3's sequel and all of its related media. In the games Shoujo Yoshitsune Den and Shoujo Yoshitsune Den 2, you play as a high school student transported to the Heian period, going by the name Benkei, and can romance anime girl versions of Yoshitsune and Shizuka, among others. In Hoshi no Ojo Uchu Ishiki ni Mezamata Yoshitsune, you play as Yoshitsune's twin sister who took Yoshitsune's name after his death. You can have sex with Benkei. The 1939 animated short film Benkei Tai Ushiwaka is based on Benkei and Yoshitsune's first encounter. The 1999 animated short film Benkei to Ushiwakamaru is also based on the famous duel. In One Piece, the character Gyukimaru is a reference to Benkei, and his fight on the bridge with Zoro parallels the one between Benkei and Yoshitsune. Ushijima Waketoshi from Haikyuu is nicknamed Ushiwaka, because that's part of his name, but also because he can jump high, a characteristic of Yoshitsune in some legends. In Samurai Champloo, there is a rap about the rumored ghost of Yoshitsune. Shisho Wakamaru from Yu Yu Hakusho is based on Yoshitsune. Yoshitsune is an antagonist in the manga and anime Drifters. In the adult anime, Shikoko no Shaga the Animation, Yoshitsune appears as the main character, going by the name Ushiwaka. In Token Rambu Hamaru, the sword Yoshitsune used to kill himself is an anime boy going by the name Imano Tsurugi. Characters named Yoshitsune and Benkei appear in the anime Air Gear. Benkei is a girl in this one. Yoshitsune, Benkei, Yoshitsune, Yoritomo, and other familiar characters appear in the 2021 anime Heike Monogatari. Here, Yoshitsune is voiced by Yuki Kaji, the Japanese voice of Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan. In the light novel Horizon in the Middle of Nowhere, there's a character named Minamoto no Yoshitsune who is an elf girl that's over a century old. The versions of Yoshitsune and Manji de Watashi ni Koichi Nasai and Eiyu Senki both appear in the Chaos trading card game, alongside any other visual novel/anime series that has ever been popular. The band Wednesday Campanella has a song titled Yoshitsune, which is based on him. It mentions various related things like Benkei and Dan no Ura. On their 7th album, Gario Tensei, Japanese heavy metal band On Myoza has a trilogy of Yoshitsune-based songs, known as the Kumikyo Yoshitsune Trilogy. And that's the speed round. That was as fast as I could possibly go. Let's actually go into some detail on some things, shall we? Our first piece of literature is the Heike Monogatari. Now this, well, I guess I can keep it here. It's 800 pages. It's a giant, massive book. I'm gonna be real. I didn't read the entire thing. I didn't have the pages. I just kind of skipped through. I went to like chapters and places that I was interested in because I already knew about them. But let's talk about it. So this book dates back to like the 13th or 14th century, so it's very old. There's no actual author. This is the Royal Tyler translation, so that's what it says in the book, but he didn't write it, just translation. It was passed down through oral traditions and all that kind of stuff. Just like a lot of the stuff all the way back, because it was a really long time ago. The story isn't centered on Yoshitsune specifically, but he is a large part of it, especially the latter half. So Tale of the Heike is a giant epic about the Genpei War, but despite the amount of content in this book, it is not all historically accurate. I wouldn't trust it 100%. I don't know if it should be totally discounted. Just, there's like demons and like spirits and stuff, and I don't think that happened in real life. So one of the parts that shouldn't be trusted in this book is its depiction of Taira Kiyomori. Now in real life, you know, he was back to the former emperor in a political thing. That worked out well for him. Then he fought back against the Heiji Rebellion, which also went well for him. Then he got like super powerful because he won. Basically, Tale of the Heike makes him seem like a completely evil, like, demon person. And that's, I don't think, like, even the worst, not even, like, Yoritomo is like, that bad. Okay, maybe Yoritomo's that bad, I hate that guy. But, like, any person should not be presented as a demon, maybe? And it's, like, I think this is the earliest account we have of the events of Yoshitsune's life and the Genpei War. So lots of information comes from this book that could be factually accurate, but some of it is just made up, and it's hard to tell where it differs. One example of this is the death of Noritsune. So according to Tale of the Heike, Noritsune was a rival to Yoshitsune. He was a Taira commander and an archer. In fact, at one point he almost killed Yoshitsune, but one of his retainers got in the way and he died instead. So in the final battle of Dan no Ura, which is probably the most famous part of the Tale of the Heike and of the Genpei War, actually historically, it says that Noritsune was looking to kill Yoshitsune personally. Keeping up with these names? Better be. So Noritsune saw Yoshitsune on a boat and was like, well, I gotta go kill that guy, so he jumped onto the boat that Yoshitsune was on, and Yoshitsune looked at him and just jumped onto a boat and drifted away. And this pissed off Noritsune so much that he was like, no, I'm done. He like ripped off his armor and he like threw his sword into the ocean or like the river. I don't really remember where this took place. It was the water somewhere. Then he like took two Minamoto soldiers like under his arms and like threw them with himself. He jumped off of the boat and drowned all three of them. So that's did not happen. At least I don't think it happened. Samurai Rising, the book I mentioned earlier, it goes through a bunch of like different accounts of what happened between Noritsune and Yoshitsune, and then it presents what I just told you as the real event. But then in Tale of the Heike itself, Royal Tyler, in the character introduction section, he says that Noritsune actually like died like a few battles earlier, so it's impossible that he died in Dan no Ura. So yeah, that's where we're at with Tale of the Heike and its historical accuracy. Since it's the earliest one, I think the stories in it, like the Noritsune battle with Yoshitsune, that was fabricated, those are more generally accepted than the actual historical events, because they're just more widespread. For example, like if you just Google, how did Noritsune die, it will say he died in the Battle of Dan no Uda, drowning himself. But the Battle of Dan no Uda in Tale of the Heike, I read the whole thing. It's actually very good. Like, it's good literature. It's my favorite part of this book, and my favorite part of, like, this entire story. Most of Book 12 of this book, wherever the 12th one is, that is all Dan no Uda stuff. It's really cool. Of course, you have the aforementioned death of Noritsune, which is good, discounting the it being fake. And then there's the death of Emperor Antoku, which is crazy. So Emperor Antoku, he was basically just the figurehead. He was 6 years old. He obviously was not making any important decisions. But he was in this battle. He wasn't killing anyone. He was just there. He was on a boat with himself and his grandmother, and they were protecting the Imperial Regalia. But when the grandmother realized that we're probably not going to win this fight, and this is the last battle of the war, she took 2 of the items of the Imperial Regalia, which was the sword, the treasure sword, and the jewel. She threw them into the water, and then she took the Emperor in her arms and drowned themselves. So she was like, you're not taking the Regalia, you're not taking us, we're dead. And that is a very good drama, I would say. When I was reading this, I had, like, images in my mind of, like, how this would look in a, like, high-budget TV show or movie. I might have to make it myself. So, Tale of the Heike is an epic, incredibly long book. Some of it's probably fact, some of it's not. And if you have the patience and attention span to read the entire thing, or if you just want to read a little bit, yeah, go pick it up. Maybe not, I don't know, you could probably get an ebook. That's probably easier than finding. This probably, like, takes up my entire bookshelf. Next book, we're on to the 14th century, probably, with, there's no cover, Yoshitsune. That's not what it's called. It's called the Gikeiki. It says Yoshitsune on the side. So this book chronicles the events of Yoshitsune's life in great detail. I wish it had a cover, but it doesn't. This version was translated by Helen Craig McCullough in 1966. The book details all you need to know in 8 chapters. It even has a map of Japan, which is pretty cool. I like maps. Now, of course, there are sections about things that everyone knows, like Yoshitsune passing the border in disguise, and Yoshitsune committing seppuku. But there's also sections about, like, how Yoshitsune burned down a house, and the memorial services for some of his retainers. Things that you're not going to find in general outlines, or just basic tellings of the story. The little things like that are reasons why I like this book, because it taught me new things that I didn't already know. A big complaint I do have, though, is it's kind of a slog to just sit down and read. I mean, once it actually gets into the material, it's fine. But page 1 is on page 69. The first 67 pages are just introduction, and I was just like, first of all, I already know all of this, and it is very boring to read. And the last 50 pages is just appendixes. This is more accurate, I think. The Gikeiki isn't something that I would recommend to anybody that's not already interested in Yoshitsune, because most of the fun comes out of the smaller details, like I mentioned. The whole book, or at least the whole translation, is about 225 pages, and like half of that is not even the actual book. But yeah, good resource though. Now on to 1840 Kabuki Theater. Kanjinchou is a kabuki play based on the 15th century no play Ataka. This was the first time a no play was adapted into kabuki. The story of Kanjinchou centers on the alleged incident where Benkei beat up Yoshitsune in order to pass the reporter. Of course, I didn't watch this in person, but I did find a version on YouTube with English narration by Paul Griffith, who also did the English translation. Griffith has a very soothing voice, and I very much enjoyed listening to it. And also, it makes it much more understandable for non-Japanese audiences. So Yoshitsune has been betrayed by Yoritomo, and he is now an enemy of the state. Yoritomo demands that new barriers be set up to stop Yoshitsune so they can kill him, and all traveling monks shall be thoroughly investigated. So, thinking very smartly about this, Yoshitsune just puts on a different disguise. He disguises himself as a porter, and they try to go through, but they're stopped because the rest of them are still traveling monks, which is kind of a bad idea. I don't know why they didn't. Benkei and the barrier guard, Tokashi no Saemon, get into a discussion about whether they should pass or not. Benkei is actually very smart about this. Here's an example.
He lowers his head respectfully, as the singers speculate on how the deity Fudor will view the shameful deed that is about to take place. The executioners will surely be damned.
And here's another.
The following is one of the most famous scenes in Kabuki. Benkei unrolls the fake scroll and, with great formality, holds it out and pretends to read.
Eventually, Benkei, I think he hits Yoshitsune. It doesn't really look like it in the play. You can see behind me. He just kind of like, eh. And then he misses, it looks like. But I think maybe that's supposed to be him hitting Yoshitsune. I have no idea. Anyways, eventually near the end of this confrontation, Benkei is like, bro, if you got any suspicions, I will beat this porter to death. Porter being Yoshitsune. And Simon is just like, okay. At this point, he knows it's Yoshitsune there, but he's like, I respect that. I respect your loyalty, and so I'm going to let you through. And he's doing this knowing that it might cost his life. And that's pretty cool, I guess. As the narrator mentions a couple of times, there are very famous scenes in this Kabuki play, so I assume it is also a very famous play in general. It's a very famous story, and I assume Kanjinchou plays a part in that. I'm not really familiar with Kabuki, like, at all, but that was a pretty enjoyable experience. I would recommend it, again, if you're interested. And that's all I have to say. Also, thanks again to Paul Griffith for doing the narration.
Feeling like he's just trodden on a tiger's tail, we hear.
Next up is The Men Who Tread on the Tiger's Tail. So this movie I have on DVD. It came with 4 other movies in the Criterion Collection. I also got the Blu-ray. There it is. I got this one first, and then I realized that I don't speak Japanese. Anyways, this movie was written and directed by Akira Kurosawa. It was his 4th film, written during and after World War II, so it is very interesting. Due to limited resources, it was actually filmed on only 1 set. And although it was made in 1945, it wasn't released until 1952 in Japan, and then 1960 in America. And that was because it covers the same story as Kanjinchou about the whole border thingy, but it takes a more comedic thing, and the censors were like, well, I don't like that you're making fun of this historical sacred incident. But the movie did come out. It's been like 80 years. Wait, it's been, like 60 years or something. I don't know. I didn't do the math. That was just off the top of my head. But let's take a look. This time we get to see the incident through the eyes of a porter, and not the Yoshitsune porter, like an actual porter. The porter is a character that Kurosawa added to the story. He undercuts a lot of moments and is in stark contrast to the rest of the characters, who are serious. The porter was played by Kenichi Minamoto, who was a famous Japanese comedian in the 1930s. He can get a little annoying in places, but his facial expressions kill me in the good way, so I can kind of pass it. Look at this, hold on. It's on the cover, look at his face. I think that's Benkei right there. And then there's just this guy. So at the beginning, the porter's basically like, hey guys, did you know that Yoshitsune is traveling with like 7 of his friends and they're all disguised as traveling... Wait. The dialogue in this movie is mainly given to the porter and Benkei. Benkei still needs to have the discussion with the barrier guard, and Yoshitsune is kind of just off to the side being quiet. But it is a good movie. They have the part where Benkei beats the crap out of Yoshitsune. It looks like he got hit pretty hard, pretty nice. Eventually, of course, they do get through, and they have like a little dance party, and everyone's like lightened up now, and the porter is having fun. And then when the porter wakes up, everybody is gone. It leaves on sort of a melancholic note. There's a tinge of sadness knowing that Yoshitsune and his retainers will soon die. So, The Men Who Tread on the Tiger's Tail is not Kurosawa's best work, but it is only 59 minutes, and it is a pretty good watch. If you like Kurosawa's movies, or you're, again, just interested in the subject, check it out. I like it. Next up, let's read some manga. Shanaou Yoshitsune was a shonen manga that ran from 2000 to 2007 with 78 chapters. There's also a sequel that takes place during the Genpei War, but I can't read that because I can't find it anywhere. So the story starts in the first chapter in a modern day setting. Basically, there's just these people, like historians or like I don't know, some people that have the knowledge, and they found this scroll from the Heian period, which is the Genpei War period, where Yoshitsune was from, and they're like, wow, it's a story about Yoshitsune that's even more accurate than the Gikeiki. So that's crazy. Why does it say Yoshitsune died when he was 16? So then we go back to the 12th century and we start looking at a boy named Hyota. So Hyota is a child performer, and he is noticed by Yoshitsune's mother. And then Yoshitsune's mother is like, what if we had someone that looked like Yoshitsune come into our home, so then actual Yoshitsune could go outside, because he hasn't been outside of the walls for a very long time. So there's just basically two Yoshitsunes, except Hyota is very vulgar. We see his penis 3 times in the first chapter. So basically Yoshitsune, or Ushiwaka in this case, is off traveling in the outside world, actually disguised as Hyota, I think. And Hyota is very rudely taking the place of Ushiwaka. And he basically just ruins everything immediately. Taira Kiyomori comes in, to check on him, because in this case, they spent a couple years together, I think. And when Kiyomori comes in, he's like, whoa, Ushiwaka's changed. And he, sees him as an actual threat now. And yeah, I will not spoil anything else. That was just the first chapter. But it is 78 chapters long. It's pretty good. It's not the best thing I've ever read, but it's a fun read. And if you like manga, I would recommend it. Oh, and it's obviously not historically accurate. This never happened. Now, a bunch of Yoshitsune stuff came out in, specifically 2005 for some reason. I don't know why, but we're going to start with Genji Dawn of the Samurai, a PS2 hack and slash. This was the first game developed by Game Republic. It says right there. You can't see it. And they didn't do much else. They made a Dragon Ball game and went out of business. The company was founded by Yoshiki Okamoto, who produced Capcom games like the first Resident Evil and Street Fighter 2. So we are actually in some pretty good hands, apparently. And this one was even published by Sony Computer Entertainment themselves. It says it right there, in the bottom right. So first off, how historically accurate is it? It's not. Dawn of the Samurai is loosely based on Tale of the Heike, and the fantastical elements are surely still there. So the characters were real, the places were real. There's Gojo Bridge, where Yoshitsune and Benkei had their duel, and the duel is even there because Benkei is a boss fight, and that's pretty cool. But that's all. Taira Kiyomori wasn't an evil overlord trying to get magic rocks. Yoshitsune never fought himself inside of his own mind. Shizuka didn't have pink hair. It's a good game, though. You can play as Yoshitsune, and then after fighting Benkei, he joins you, and you can play as both Yoshitsune and Benkei. Yoshitsune is quicker, lighter tanks, and Benkei is bigger, stronger, but slower. You can switch between the two at any save point. The main gimmick of the game is the Amahagane, the magic rock thing made up for this game. The Amahagane slows down time, and with a timed button press, you can hit the enemies coming at you. And each time you kill an enemy, it gets slower. I actually forgot this mechanic existed for most of the game, but it's actually really cool. The game uses fixed camera angles, which I know might turn off some people since it's very outdated at this point, but in my opinion, it doesn't really hinder the gameplay, so I don't have a problem. The hack and slash gameplay is very fun, and the bosses are difficult, but in a good way, most of them. When you finally beat a boss in this game, it's super satisfying because, well, you have used what you've learned, and your improved skills have provided results. And onto the presentation. For PS2 graphics, this is actually really good looking, especially the CGI cutscenes. They're pretty impressive. And again, it is a PS2 game, so I wouldn't expect too much, but there's some really cool looking areas. Look at the final boss area. That looks very cool. I would love to see an HD version of this game sometime. The character designs, as I mentioned, not historically accurate. This is not what they would be wearing if it was actually accurate, but I like looking at him. Yoshitsune is especially cool. Look at him. He's cool. They definitely went for the youthful and dashing look. And the music in this game is pretty solid. Nothing super crazy to write home about, but it's not garbage, so nice. The game is only in Japanese, but honestly, I prefer it for games set in historical times in Japan. It'd be kind of weird if it was in English. But yeah, very good game. I recommend it if you have a PS2. If you want to, if you have a PS2, yeah, play it. Now, less than a year after its initial launch, Sony announced a sequel at the E3 2006 press conference called Genji Days of the Blade. Well, they didn't have a title for it yet, but that's what it's called. And just watch the clip.
Genji 2 is an action game which is based on Japanese history. The stages of the game will also be based on famous battles which actually took place in ancient Japan. So here's this giant enemy crab.
Yeah, so that went well. But how is the game behind the meme? Let's check it out. The first thing you'll notice in this game is that it adds English voice acting.
So, you are Yoshitsune?
Yes.
I've never changed the language so fast in a game. The story is nothing crazy. Okay, it's something crazy, but just, like, not in a good way. I wasn't super impressed, but I'm not going to this game for the story, so I'm not really bothered by its mediocrity. But the CG cutscene's still pretty. So this game takes place in the actual Genpei War, which is almost cool. It seems like it would be cool, like, going through the actual battles and stuff, but the demons and stuff kind of cheapen it. For the gameplay, there is now 4 playable fighters. There's Yoshitsune, Benkei, now there's also Shizuka now, and Buson, who's like a god or something, who, like, took Kiyomori's body. That's the final boss from the last game. That one was pretty dumb. He's also, like, awful to control. Never play as him. Shizuka isn't great either. Actually, Yoshitsune is, like, the only one you would ever want to play as in this game. But sometimes you're forced to play as the other ones. Yeah. You can now switch characters at the press of the D-pad in each direction. Again, you wouldn't ever want to do that, but it's better than the previous game having to switch at save points. And each character has their own different weapons they can use and all that type of stuff, and that's all nice. That's all the good I can say about this game. So, problem number 1, the camera. It's bad. It's like they made the areas for a controllable camera, and then they just decided to make it fixed, and, like, this game just takes a bunch of weird angles and it just ruins, I wouldn't want to say the entire thing, but it, like, really dampens my enjoyment of this game. So here's an example. There's this part where I enter a room, I can't see any of the enemies, I can't, like, change the camera angle, so I can't look at them, so the only reason I would know they're there is the mini-map, which should not be where I'm looking right now, because I need to know where they are so I can hit them. And there's just a lot of that type of stuff. Like, there's this boss fight where you're on the bridge, and there's this really cool looking dude. He looks really cool, and it's on the bridge, and you have a back shot from the bridge, and his first attack is rushing right past you, so you can't see him at all. If you run down to attack him, you could just be running straight into attack, you would never know. Also, he can teleport, which makes things just that much worse. Also, I have absolutely no idea what I'm supposed to be doing half of the time in this game. There's this part of the game where you need to pick up a key off of a dead body, which is like a normal game thing, right? That happens all the time. But, like, there's nothing that would tell me to do that in this game. There's no reason I would be inspecting dead bodies, because that has, first of all, never happened in the original. There was never anything like that, and that's the first time and the only time it happened in this game. So why would I possibly think, oh, I'll just go up to this one of several dead bodies and just pick up a key? It does not make any sense at all. So, the difficulty. That's my third problem. It's not good. The first game had it very good, I explained it earlier. This game, it's the epitome of artificial difficulty. And there's, like, other things that just make it harder as well. Like, when you get hit and you get knocked down, you just stay down for so long. And, like, he should be able to be getting up right now, but he just stays there. Like, then you can't press a button to get back up either. You just have to wait for him to get back up. And I assume they do that so the enemy can stab you while you're down, which is really inconvenient, because it feels like I should be able to get up because he's just on the ground for so long, and he's just waiting to be stabbed. And sometimes they just miss. Like, they're supposed to hit me, but the enemies just, like, straight up miss, and I get back up. And that's just not supposed to happen, but I'm kind of relieved when it does. But onto the artificial difficulty part, like, the Battle of Ichinotani should be cool, right? No, it's not. There's a part where there's just so many enemies. That's how they make it hard. They just throw all the enemies at you at once. Putting a lot of enemies makes it hard, but not like fun hard. It's just like, first of all, I have no idea what I'm looking at right now, and I feel like this is impossible, and I need to pull out some BS. Any character I use in this situation is going to die. I tried all of them, I think, and it would not work. Like, the only way to pass this is to have one of your characters die, or like about to die. I don't remember if you switches over when you die, but you would have to use like all of your characters and have them not die and have a lot of healing stuff, and it's really just not fun. Next, let's look at another boss fight. So this lady, she's trying to kill us, and she is a really bad boss fight. It feels like she's not even trying to hit me. Like, it's so easy now. I did this like perfectly. Like, I don't think I barely took any damage the first time I tried this. And then then she like goes into a Super Saiyan mode. She gets like a second form, and she comes back, and it's still like super easy. And she like turns into a butterfly or something. Then I've almost killed her, and then she hits me once, and it gets me stuck in a combo that I can't get out of, and it just instantly kills me. One attack like combo. It's not like one single hit, but like one thing that I could not get out of because the game would not let me exit, and I did everything perfectly until I just got caught in that one combo, and then I was just dead. I had to redo it. Thankfully, I did it perfectly the second try, but it's stuff like that just makes me not like this game. So those are the bigger issues. I have like smaller gripes, like they changed how the Amahagane works just to be a quick time event thing. The game, I won't lie to you, it's not the worst thing ever, but like especially compared to this, it really sucks. I'll be honest again, I didn't finish it. I tried. I just got really frustrated, and I thought, well, I think I've played like 75% of the game. I think I have enough of an opinion about it. So yeah, that's Genji Days of the Blade. I would not recommend this one. The next game is Yoshitsune Eiyuuden, the story of hero Yoshitsune. I don't know why it has a English subtitle because it was only released in Japan. This one is a real-time strategy / third-person action game from Software. They would later go on to make Dark Souls and Elden Ring and all that, but this was before all that, when they had other games. Yoshitsune Eiyuuden, also from 2005, by the way, it's the antithesis to Genji Dawn of the Samurai, the first one, because it is very historically accurate. They put a lot of detail. There's even like a history section. You can tell they put a lot of effort. Even like the costumes are correct. The game's just not fun though. It does look fine. I think the CG cutscenes look cool. Onto the gameplay part. I could not get through this game either, just because I was legitimately just having a hard time beating the levels. The fun parts were like, hey, I read about this battle in a book, which again, it's represented really well. But then that wears off after like 5-10 minutes, and I'm like, wow, I don't want to be playing this game anymore. So part of the gameplay consists of commanding your soldiers and your generals using the face buttons, which is triangle, circle, X, and square on PlayStation. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. You just command them to do a bunch of different stuff. Not my cup of tea, I guess. So that's the strategy. Make your guys do things by pressing buttons. It's simple. It's fine. I'm not enthralled by it, but it's not terrible. But the part I have a problem with is the combat. It is slow and janky, especially when you're riding on a horse. I can barely even hit anybody. The controls are stiff and very annoying. It's not fun to control. It's not fun to kill people. For strategy games, it's nice when the AI is good. The AI in this game is not. It's really bad, and that is, this game isn't very good, I would say, in my opinion. I'm sure there's like one guy out there who's like, man, Yoshitsune Eiyuuden, best game of all time. They did like make, not a sequel, but like an upgraded version for the PS2. I didn't realize that until after, like, I hated it, so I didn't play that one. Maybe it's better, I don't know. But box art is cool, and the history stuff is cool. and the rest of it is not. Next, in 2005, we have Yoshitsune, the TV taiga drama from NHK. It's 49 episodes. I didn't watch every single one. I watched the first, 10, 15 episodes. Then I skipped around the last few ones to see what was in the episodes. I watched the one with the Battle of Dan no Ura, because I was very curious about how that was portrayed. The show is based on Tale of the Heike and the Gikeiki, starting with Yoshitsune as a child, or Ushiwakamaru, and going all the way to Seppuku when he dies, and even a little bit after that. This show is, in my opinion, the best way to experience the legend of Yoshitsune. Unfortunately, it's not very accessible, at least in the United States, or in the West in general. It's hard to find and watch. But anyway, let's actually talk about the show. So, it's based on Tale of the Heike. It's not trying to be historically accurate, it's the legend. As previously stated, we start with Yoshitsune as a child, Ushiwakamaru, and in this version, he's living with Tada Kiyomori, as I said some people theorized about. This time, he isn't portrayed as, basically Satan, which is a good change. He's actually, a nice and sympathetic character, and I enjoy that. Then Yoshitsune gets sent to Kurama Temple to become a monk, and then we get a time skip where Yoshitsune turns into Hideaki Takizawa, and he does a great job in this role. He's a very good actor. Here we see who I assume is Sojobo, the god of the Tengu. In legend, he trained Yoshitsune how to fight and stuff, instead of Yoshitsune going to Hiraizumi and training there. So, that obviously didn't happen, but that's how the legend goes, and that's what they're adapting here. And the cinematography is actually pretty decent as well. There's quite a few good shots. It does look like it was made in 2005, though. It looks like I recorded it, on my 480p, digital camera when I was 6. And, there's some scenes where I'm just wow, there's a lot of people in silly costumes walking in a park right now. That's what it looks like to me. But that might just be a personal problem. Overall, it is a visually pretty good show. The action isn't super good. It's not an action show, I'll just say that. You know how I said the legend says he jumps really high? He just jumps, and it looks really goofy. Yoshitsune 2005 is a drama more than anything else, and that's where it excels. The characters are good, they're entertaining, they're engaging, and I was always caring about what was happening on screen. It can get a little slow at times, but usually it's an engaging viewing experience. I do wish it was available in HD, though. As I said, the quality is not super good. It was 2005, though. What are you going to do? So, yeah, if you can find a Rogue Yoshitsune DVD, check it out. Next, we have Kurozuka. Kurozuka is a supernatural romance novel by Baku Yumemakura featuring Yoshitsune, known here as Kuro, Ninth Son. The novel was published in 2000, with a manga adaptation running from 2002 to 2006, and an anime adaptation came in 2008, which is what I'll be watching here. The adaptation was done by Madhouse, a studio you may recognize from Death Note, One Punch Man, Hunter x Hunter, Diary of Anne Frank, all that stuff. So let's talk about it. I'm going to describe you the first 2 episodes. So Yoshitsune and Benkei are chilling, killing some zombies. Yes, this is not historically accurate, must I say. The boys then run into Kuromitsu, a made-up character that is an immortal vampire lady. That's right, the romance in this story is not between Yoshitsune and Shizuka, as you may have expected. It's actually between famous Japanese samurai from the 1100s, Minamoto no Yoshitsune, and an immortal vampire lady. Kuro and Kuromitsu are making out, and somehow it's gonna turn him into an immortal being, but then Benkei shows up and chops off his head. When Kuro wakes up, he wakes up after being decapitated, yes. He finds himself in a post-apocalyptic Japan, and then he goes to find Kuromitsu wherever she went off to. So this story is about a famous Japanese samurai, Minamoto no Yoshitsune, from the 12th century, and an immortal vampire lady in post-apocalyptic Japan. It's the best thing ever made. This isn't something I would legitimately recommend to anybody, but it's the kind of thing that's so just insane and crazy that I can't help but be entertained. There is some actual good stuff, though. Like, the animation is pretty cool. There's some cool looking stuff going on. I don't really know how to describe it, but it looks cool. The animation style is very clearly 2008 anime, and that I mean, it's not inherently a good thing, it's just kind of nostalgic, I guess, so I appreciate it for that. And there are some actual freaky scenes, like, I don't remember, or I don't think I knew in the first place why this happened, but Benkei is looking at Kuromitsu with Kuro's, like, head, and it's pretty freaky. So, objectively, this is, like, the most 6 out of 10 thing I've ever seen. But in terms of, like, strictly how much I enjoyed it, I put it, like, a 7.5, and then just for 11 out of 10. I went in thinking it would be terrible, and I was pleasantly surprised that it wasn't. I set a pretty low bar, but I mean, yeah. Finally, this is our last one. We've come to our final Yoshitsune game. This one came out in 2020, which is when I originally wrote the script for this video, and it is Birushana Senki, Rising Flower of the Genpei is what it's called in English. I bought this game last year, and there was no English translation, and I assumed there was going to be one. And then, like, 3 months later, they announced an English translation, which still has not come out yet, so I only have the Japanese one. But this is an otome game. Otome games are aimed towards females. You play as a girl surrounded by a bunch of hot anime boys. That's usually how it goes. And that's what this is. You play as Shanaou, but girl Shanaou. That's right, the little twist they put on is Shanaou Yoshitsune was actually just a girl pretending to be a man, like Mulan, I guess. At first I assumed that Yoshitsune turning into an anime girl was just a weird anime thing, but it's actually, like, based on the other legends and stuff that say Yoshitsune was beautiful and sometimes feminine and all that. So it's actually kind of cool. The actual chances of Yoshitsune being a girl are like -50, but it's still a fun concept. This is, by the way, like my favorite Yoshitsune design, at least female Yoshitsune design. I mean, the bar is pretty low, but I really like this, and the art style, bro. So yeah, also we can throw the historical accuracy out of the way pretty quickly. We have a bunch of characters on the back. You can date all of them. Benkei is one of them. You've also got Yoritomo, which is very uncomfortable. What's he gonna say? Like, hey, I'm gonna declare you enemy of the state and try to kill you. Like, okay. I really like Noritsune. Noritsune is here as well. I like his pink hair. He's pretty cool. Benkei's my favorite though. He's pretty epic. I haven't finished because there's a lot of routes and it's really long to get all the way through. But actually, pretty good game. When it comes out in English, you should play it. Hey everybody, it's me, Eiyuuden, another internet nerd from the future. That was supposed to be the end of the video you just saw, but it's not, because I've learned some new information and I have that to tell you, and also some corrections. This part is not scripted. First of all, I forgot to talk about the Azuma Kagami, which details events starting from Yoritomo's rebellion until the 6th shogunate in 1266. 1266 was when it was made, so I mean, I guess they had to stop. So yeah, it's a document which just goes over shogun stuff, what they did, the weather. I'm just reading the Wikipedia article about it. So this document isn't super trustworthy either. It's biased against the Minamoto, but not against Yoshitsune, because I guess he got in a fight with Yoritomo, which got him killed, so I mean, yeah, okay. Also, one correction, I think I said the Gikeiki is probably more historically accurate, something along those lines. It's actually still like a fictionalized chronicle of what happened, according to some people, and some people think it's real. I thought I would specify that. Basically, what I'm saying with all of these is they could be completely made up and BS, and they could be 100% actually true. We're just kind of born like 900 years too late? Yeah, around there. Next, I want to talk about some more taiga dramas. I don't remember how well I specified this, but basically, NHK, the broadcasting company, releases historical dramas that last for a year, usually around 48 to 50 episodes, 45 minutes. The one from 2005 was Yoshitsune, which I talked about earlier, but there was more relating to Yoshitsune that I just completely missed. So one of them is Taira no Kiyomori. This one was from 2012 to 2013. Kiyomori is played by Kenichi Matsuyama, and Yoshitsune appears in 11 episodes played by Ryunosuke Kamiki. Now the whole reason I came back from the future is because of the current taiga drama, the 61st one I believe, which is the 13 Lords of the Shogun. So this one's about Yoritomo and after his death the 13 people that were trying to take his place, and some of it takes place during the war. I assume there's no way I can possibly watch this other than going to Japan, which I'm gonna have to wait a few months for that. But yeah, Yoshitsune is of course in this one as well, prior to Yoritomo's dying, I assume. And he's played by Masaki Suda. By the way, the music in this is by Evan Call, who did Violet Evergarden's music. I just wanted to point that out because he's a cool guy. But the reason that I actually took time to add this to the video is because it has a very different depiction of Yoshitsune than what we're used to. I've gotten all this information from just Japanese articles about this because, again, I can't watch it. So this could be a little wrong, but let's just go with it for now. The way the 13 Lords of the Shogun depict Yoshitsune is very different from what you're used to. He has a lot more flaws, and yeah. I've seen a few comments from Japanese people on some articles about, like, how the Yoshitsune 2005 was, like, the hero Yoshitsune, and then the Yoshitsune in this one is Black Yoshitsune. The one in this one is cowardly, he is overly emotional, and doesn't think too much, and I think he does not fight with the honor that was expected of him, so even though he ended up winning the battles, they didn't like him, and that's why Yoritomo got in a big feud with him. Oh, by the way, I said that Yoritomo got jealous, and that's why they were doing the fighting. That's kind of like what the legend says, like a simplification of it. I'm not going to explain it all here, but it's a lot more complicated than that. There's a lot of stuff going on. As much as I like the hero Yoshitsune, it's actually really refreshing to see this kind of take on the character, person, real man. I don't know. But, yeah. Cool. I don't know why I'm still wearing my headphones. And, now, goodbye.
Requests for subscriptions have now been sent throughout the land.